On the 40th anniversary of the Six-Day War, I'm going on a journey through Israel's occupied territories.
How old is this boy? 15?
I'll be meeting people on both sides of the divide.
You're going to say I'm a racist. What has Islam given to the world beside oil?
Settlement, 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 settlement.
I stay here. If they want to kill me, they can kill me.
I'll be looking at the human cost of the conflict.
They were beaten to death by Palestinians who took rocks and beat them to death.
And I'll be asking, can Israel's democracy survive its occupation of the Palestinian territories?
She's not supposed to be here. It's a Jewish place.
This is Tel Aviv, Israel's largest city. Strolling along the seafront here, you could be in Europe, you could be in America. West's support for Israel is predicated, at least in part, upon the fact that we think they're a bit like us. The country's a liberal democracy. But 40 years after its illegal, and some would say brutal, occupation of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, can we still say that Israel is part of the Western club of nations and a true democracy? That's what I'm here to find out. At the outset, I must confess myself to be an ardent admirer of the state of Israel. I believe the Israelis have created a modern, efficient, prosperous country in the midst of a sea of backward, corrupt, incompetent Arab dictatorships. I wanted to test whether my instinctive sympathy for the Israelis in their conflict with the Arabs was justified by travelling through the West Bank, where Israeli democracy is under the most strain. June marks the 40th anniversary of the Six-Day War. In an extraordinary campaign, the Israelis defeated Syria, Egypt and Jordan. As a result of the conflict, Israel took over the Gaza Strip, the Golan Heights and the West Bank. The Six-Day War left a pleasantly surprised Israel in possession of rather more land than it had had before. And the challenge then was to incorporate this vast new mass of disconsolate and rebellious Palestinians from the lands which it had conquered into a democratic and Jewish Israeli state. Israel's founder, David Ben-Gurion, had always warned that the expansion of Israel to include the Palestinian territories would place huge strain on Israel's nascent democracy. Have the years since 1967 proved him to be right? Before entering the West Bank, I needed to pick up a Palestinian guide. I'd arranged to meet one in the old city of Jerusalem, which was annexed by Israel in 1967, but which Palestinians still claim as their capital. My guide was late, for reasons that I was to become painfully familiar with.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. I'm Rod. You had trouble getting here?
Yeah, I'm sorry for being late. I had to pass my
What happened?
checkpoint.
Elias had been stopped at an Israeli checkpoint as he travelled out of the West Bank from his home in Bethlehem.
How often does this happen?
You never know. It might take you 10 minutes, might take you 1 hour.
It's a bit of an inconvenience for your day.
Yeah. You know, since more than 6 months I've not been here. Because of, I cannot take my car, I need to have permission, a magnet card. And
You need permission to do what?
to come to Jerusalem, you know.
Why do you need permission to come to Jerusalem? You live in this
This is the
country.
occupation, you know. This is the occupation. Go inside and...
As a West Banker, Elias is allowed to enter Jerusalem only because, as well as being a human rights worker, he's also a tour guide. This felt like a very different country from the one I'd left behind in Tel Aviv, and indeed the rest of the world thinks it is. My aim on this journey was not to film riots or confrontations. I wanted to see what everyday life was like for ordinary people, both Jews and Palestinians living in the West Bank. Elias took me first to Calandia, the main checkpoint controlling access between the West Bank and Jerusalem. Who's allowed in and who's not?
At this, like in cars, it's only people who have Jerusalem ID and Israeli ID. For West Bankers like me, I have to go through that terminal, which for pedestrians.
What, that one over there?
Yeah, exactly. They have to present my ID, my permission, my magnetic card.
Checkpoints like this are a source of humiliation and annoyance for Palestinians.
The way they speak to you is very humiliating. Most of them, you would notice that they are teenagers, 18, 19 years old. Stop, put your hand, where's your ID?
There's quite a heavy military presence here as well, isn't there, Oliver?
Yeah. Always you have, the watching towers, which has...
guns, presumably, do they?
Ready to shoot.
Palestinians spend a fairly large part of their lives waiting at checkpoints like this. But there is, of course, a reason for them. Various Palestinian groups have repeatedly used suicide bombers to attack Israel. Since 1994, hundreds of Israelis have died in these horrific and barbaric attacks. The violence has fallen since Hamas, the main terrorist organisation, declared an informal ceasefire last year. But it has not stopped entirely, and it might start again. Understandably, the Israelis remain deeply wary of Palestinians entering Israel from the West Bank. They have some reason to be afraid.
Why?
Because there have been atrocities carried out by Palestinians against Israelis, haven't there?
Yeah, but what's the main reason?
Yeah, I don't think you get it.
Okay,
Mate,
I understand their fear.
I understand. That's
I understand
the
their fear. Although they are the one who's causing this fear for themselves.
Well, they're not, are they? I mean,
Yes.
this is a two-way thing. It's all very well for you to come back at every answer and say, yes, but they didn't do that, but they didn't do that. All I'm saying is I can see both sides. That's
Yes,
probably because I'm neither Jewish nor Palestinian. Palestinians believe security is often used as a pretext by the Israelis. And as we drove into the West Bank, I was struck by the fact that the checkpoints continued. Of the more than 500 checkpoints, the vast majority are within Palestinian territory, dividing the Palestinians not from Israel, but from each other.
This is within the West Bank, and we see this checkpoint, partial checkpoint, and you can see how many people are waiting.
This is like an entire country of Heathrow airports. Can't imagine anything worse. I faced a lengthy wait, but then, luckily for me, I'm not a Palestinian. Why are we allowed to the front of the queue? Why are we allowed to do that? Well, I don't understand.
Because we have a good driver.
We have a good driver, yeah. But why were we allowed to do that?
It seems they saw that we are press, and
they saw that we were press because we had a
international,
camera.
yeah.
Why don't you get a camera and just drive around with the camera all the time? Wrap around shades, you get away with it.
You can do it.
It's absolutely bizarre. Whatever else the checkpoints are, an impenetrable security barrier, they're not.
Yeah, sure.
Palestinians believe their primary purpose is to ram home the humiliating reality of Israeli occupation. Whatever their justification, the checkpoints clearly compromise that most basic of democratic liberties, freedom of movement. We were headed for Elias's hometown of Bethlehem. The birthplace of Christ once drew thousands of tourists. But I'd come here to see a more modern tourist attraction, the Israeli security barrier, better known simply as the Wall. And there's the back of the wall. That's horrible, isn't it?
You can imagine, we are sick inside.
We were headed for Bethlehem, where Elias, my Palestinian guide, wanted to show me the new Israeli security barrier. It's stupid construction, isn't it?
It's so ugly.
So ugly. The wall was built to close off the West Bank from the rest of Israel, but it does not follow the line of the 1967 border. Instead, it twists and turns deep within Palestinian territory. Its tortuous, circuitous route has left Bethlehem virtually enclosed. We went to visit one of Elias's neighbours, whose house is surrounded on 3 sides by the wall. Like many Palestinians in Bethlehem, Claire Anastas is a Christian. She lives here with her husband and 4 children in what she says was once a prosperous thoroughfare.
They built a wall around your house.
Yeah. We used to live in a very good life, especially for our children.
Yeah.
We used to live in very healthy life, so it's impossible to let them live buried alive like that or living in a tomb. It's all surrounded.
Living in a tomb.
All the views is walls. Even it was greenlands and very nice area.
And there's the back of the wall. That's horrible, isn't it?
You can imagine, we are sick inside. When they built the wall, my children went to school, and when they returned back, they saw it built.
The whole wall?
The whole way in one day.
All the way through?
Yeah, surrounded like that. So they stood in front of their bedroom windows, and they just cried.
Elias took me to one of the poorer areas of town. Because of the wall, the children here are now forced to play in the street.
Behind the wall, you will see a very nice olive grove where all these children...
That's where the kids used to play?
Yeah, used to play soccer, used to go and read and have fun. But now after the wall, not anymore.
Not anymore. That's the olive grove where the kids would have played.
Yes.
And there's now no way at all that people can get over to the olive groves over there. No chance.
Seen from above, the purpose of the wall seems rather different. In the distance, one of the Jewish settlements of the West Bank, with acres of land to expand into. And right there, Palestinian Bethlehem, hemmed in on all sides.
No chance for the town to expand.
And this is the purpose. They are trying to take as much as more land, so there is no hope for future expansion.
What first occurs, of course, when you see this is the sheer crudity of what the Israelis have done, and also the vindictiveness and the pettiness. Now, you can build a wall for security, but it doesn't look, from where I'm standing, that this wall has been built solely with security in mind. There is something else there. And the annexation of this huge amount of land that the Palestinians used to grow their crops on and play in and picnic in has just been taken like that, without so much as a by your leave by the Israelis. That's not a security issue.
It may remind you of many walls from history. In Berlin, in Belfast, and in Warsaw. Back in Tel Aviv, I confronted the Deputy Defence Minister, Ephraim Snei, whose department has direct responsibility for the West Bank.
Why has Israel built the wall?
We built the wall because we lost almost 1,000 Israelis, most of them civilians, in suicide bombing perpetrated by terrorists, mainly from the West Bank, who just walked from the places where they live to Israeli towns and villages, mainly to shopping malls, restaurants, bus stations, and exploded themselves.
But you're inflicting this misery upon an entire population with the wall built in many cases, and particularly in Bethlehem, right up against the side of their houses, so there is no room for that Arab community to expand.
If there is damage to Palestinians whose access to their lands is now limited, the blame is on the terrorists who turn the West Bank to a basis for suicide bombers.
The wall effectively marks the death of the peace process between Israel and the Palestinians. But the Palestinians do today enjoy some measure of autonomy. Within the towns of the West Bank, they have their own policemen, who are allowed to do stuff like direct the traffic, as if auditioning for a part in Chicago. The new Palestinian Authority has proved predictably corrupt and incompetent. But how much real power does it wield? The West Bank is divided into 3 zones. Zone A, under Palestinian control, Zone B, where control is shared, and Zone C, where the Israelis retain full control. I wanted to discover just how much this limited autonomy represented a genuine democratic concession by the Israelis. Elias took me to the village of Al-Masra, which lies a few miles to the south of Bethlehem. He introduced me to Mahmoud Zouakhra, the local mayor and headmaster of the local school.
Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Hiya, girls.
We will introduce for you all of the staffs in this school.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mahmoud proudly showed me around his school.
5th grade.
Hi. Hi. What are they learning?
What are you learning now? Religion. Yeah.
Religion.
Yeah.
Education in the West Bank is fully under Palestinian control. But once school was over, Mahmoud took me on a tour of the area.
The idea is that it's not our fault that we...
Villages like Al-Masra have seen their lands steadily eaten away by the growth of Jewish settlements during the 4 decades of occupation. There are now close to 500,000 Jewish settlers in the West Bank, their homes easily identifiable by their red roofs and apparent prosperity. The Palestinian Authority is powerless to prevent their growth.
So, what's all this about? This is a demolished house.
Yes, last year the soldiers came and they destroyed this house because it is built very close to the settlement, even though the house is built before the settlement, and they told them that the house is in a high place, so they destroy it.
It's in a high place? You're
yes.
not allowed to build in high places?
Because it's close to the settlement. Even the houses are here before the settlement. This settlement is new.
Officially, the reason given for the destruction of this house was that it lacked a building permit. The destruction, therefore, was legal, and the Israelis are always very careful to maintain the rule of law. But the fact is, the Israelis very rarely grant building permits. More than 5,000 homes have been destroyed in the occupied territories in the last 6 years. But in an arid country like Israel, perhaps even more important than control over land is control over water. And as dusk fell, Mahmoud took me to a place he felt represented the grossest injustice that the Palestinians face: an Israeli water pumping plant.
This water is pumped to the settlement, and I am living beside the settlement, and it's not allowed for me to take the water.
Yeah.
So they give us like pipes like this to take water, and they close it whenever they want. And in summer we have no water because all of the water go to the settlement.
Palestinians are denied access to the River Jordan and are dependent for their water supply on underwater reservoirs. But this resource is also controlled by the Israelis, who seem to give preference to the settlers.
I want this water for me because it's my right. They control the water, and the water is critical. And I think that in the future we will have the water war.
The water war?
Yes.
Yeah. I suppose you can make a security case for building the wall, loathsome though it is. And you can make a security case, I guess, for stopping Palestinians from building houses anywhere where they might be tempted to take a pot shot at the Israelis on the other hill. Even though that's stretching it, in my opinion. But what you can't surely do is argue that the restrictions upon the Palestinians' access to water is a security issue. It just doesn't add up.
Again, this conflicted with my basic notions of liberal democracy, and I confronted the Deputy Defence Minister.
The Israeli government is also accused of preventing the Palestinians from getting at what they say is their own water in their own territory on the West Bank, 80% of which goes to Israel. What do you say to that?
Yeah, it's not true. The question is how we share the water. Because the water, they are in underground reservoirs, you know. And you can drill in Tel Aviv and you can drill in Nablus. You reach this, finally the same reservoir, and we share it, if we like it or not.
But like it or not, it is not shared remotely equably. The Israelis control who gets the water and indeed how much of it they get. Summer is a thirsty time for the Palestinians. It was clear to me that Palestinian autonomy is, at best, only partial. Education aside, almost all key areas of Palestinian life continue to be controlled by the Israeli government, a government for which the Palestinians of the West Bank have no right to vote. Until now, I'd only glimpsed the Jewish settlements as I drove on the roads beneath them. I decided it was time I crossed the lines and heard the settler point of view.
I lost all my family in the Holocaust. I don't have grandmothers, grandfathers, uncles. I don't have nothing. The world can say whatever they want. This is our land, and we're going to stay here.
The number of Jewish settlers in the West Bank has more than doubled since the start of the peace process 16 years ago. Israeli policy is driven by the uncomfortable need to ensure the security and prosperity of these settlements. But should Democrats be supporting these people? I went to take a closer look. I headed just a couple of miles east from Mahmoud's village of Al-Masra to the settlement of Tekoa, switching to an Israeli guide and driver in order to cross the lines.
Just coming into the rather agreeable settlement of Tekoa, which looks a bit like Guildford.
Tekoa is part of a strategically vital block of settlements which lies to the south of Jerusalem.
Hello, good morning, everybody.
Good to see you.
Hope you had a good journey.
Lovely journey, thanks.
I'd come to meet Shani Simkovitz, who has lived here for the past 27 years.
My grandmother was born in the old city of Jerusalem.
Is that your grandmother?
That's my grandmother is sitting down here.
When was this taken?
This picture was taken in about 1912. Her name is Malka, and this is my daughter Malka, named after her. Now,
Shani's family left Israel during the First World War, and Shani was born in Brooklyn, but she returned to Israel when she was 16.
they had a rebellious granddaughter who, at the age of 16, realized that a Jew's place is in the land of Israel.
So the history of your family's been one on all sides of wandering from country to country.
Like all Jews.
Like all Jews.
Like all Jews, but this time we're not wandering. We're here to stay.
Did you feel uncomfortable coming to a place which the rest of the world considers to be an illegal occupation?
I don't like using those kind of words. I would call it disputed. There's nothing occupied. There was no one here to occupy it from.
Well, you may call it disputed, but the rest of the world calls it occupied.
No, but if you read your history books and you see semantics are a very important game here, okay? That's not the reason there isn't peace in the Middle East is because there are 250,000 Jews living on hilltops in Judea and Samaria. That has to do with a major force that doesn't want democracy in the Middle East. It has to do with the culture. If you're a democratic, honorable society that really wants for the rights of your people, okay, you're going to say I'm a racist. What has Islam given to the world beside oil?
Do you understand, both of you, did you understand why they're angry?
No, I don't know.
You don't understand why?
I have all kinds of things that I think, maybe because of religion issues, maybe because social issues. There are all kinds of issues. I don't know. I never talked to them that I could know.
Shani took me on a tour of the settlement block. It felt like a prosperous American suburb, which, in a way, is what it was. The settlers have lives very different from those of their Palestinian neighbours. There are no water shortages. They tend to pass through the checkpoints with a cheerful wave. In many areas, there are even separate roads for Jews and Arabs. Our first stop was to meet the local mayor, Shaul Goldstein. Shani was keen that I talk to him about the local political situation.
How do you get on with the Arab villages in the area? How does this...
This is a long story, but I have to tell you, I will try to make it briefly. The major portion of the Arab society, they don't want any relations with the West. For them, the great Satan, the great devil, is you, not me. It's the West, it's United States mainly, and second, Britain. And they don't like Israel here because Israel is like an outpost of the West inside the region of the Islam.
Do you understand why the Palestinians feel angry at your presence here?
History proved that this is the only place of the Jewish people. The Islamic world has 500 times the size of Israel. They own 22 countries. We have a single state. We're smaller than New Jersey. The width of Israel is the length of a JFK airport in New York. This is what we have. Sorry, we're not going to the sea again. We're not going to the Holocaust again. You can say whatever you want. I lost all my family in the Holocaust. I don't have grandmothers, grandfathers, uncles. I don't have nothing. The world can say whatever they want. This is our land, and we're going to stay here.
It was a powerful defence, and the Jews of Tekoa have certainly made huge sacrifices in their determination to stay here. Later, I met some of Shani's neighbours, including Seth and Sherry Mandel, whose son, Kobe, was murdered by Palestinians.
Kobe was 13. This was 6 years ago. He's our oldest son, and he decided not to go to school. And he and his friend Joseph Ishran, they decided to go hiking nearby here. And of course they didn't tell us, and they left in the morning, and they never came home. And they were beaten to death.
They were beaten to death by who?
By Palestinians who took rocks and beat them to death.
I wonder about the Palestinians. There will be parents who have lost kids, possibly at the hands of Israeli soldiers. What do you say to them?
Well, I think that there's a fundamental and qualitative difference between cold-blooded murder and murder in the defense of your country. I don't believe that there would be a conflict here if the Palestinians' leadership wanted peace, if they developed a culture not of hatred but of respect and honor for the Jewish presence here.
More than 1,000 Israelis have been killed since the start of the Second Intifada 7 years ago. In the same period, around 4,000 Palestinians have died. A combination of fear, mistrust and loathing, not to mention the huge security apparatus, means settlers and Palestinians are now almost entirely segregated. The Jews, in particular, prefer it that way.
At their most generous, the settlers will extend to the Palestinians the benefit of being a secondary labour force characterised by low skills, low aspirations and very, very cheap indeed. And they will put up with them so long as there are no territorial ambitions and certainly no nationalistic ambitions. It's undoubtedly true that it's very, very difficult not to admire the settlers. They're very brave, very resilient, and they have made an awful lot of this land. And they point out with some justice that the Palestinians have made rather less of it. And they doubt that the Palestinians ever will make anything of it. And it is in that attitude that you begin to see the relationship between the Israelis and the Palestinians.
It is hard to equate the social and economic imbalance between the two communities with our notion of democracy. And this inbuilt inequality is even more stark when Jews and Palestinians live right next door to each other.
Go on! She started up with me, I'm gonna kill her! She's not supposed to be here! It's a Jewish place! It's a Jewish place!
I was headed for the city of Hebron, which lies at the southern end of the West Bank. It is the site of the tomb of Abraham, and it is sacred to both Muslims and Jews. Hebron is the only place in the West Bank where a community of Jewish settlers lives right in the heart of a Palestinian city. Many are what we might call religious fundamentalists. They arrived in the immediate aftermath of the Six-Day War and have steadily expanded since then, acquiring property through a mixture of purchase and seizure. I wanted to see how the Israeli state mediates in this petty and occasionally vicious confrontation, whether its response is what we'd expect of a democratic state. I'd come to meet Hani Abu Haikal. Hi. How are you? Rod.
I am Hani over here, Carl.
Hannah, nice to meet you.
Me too.
Hani is university educated but sells coffee for a living because of the chronic levels of unemployment in the West Bank.
What a market. What a market.
Yeah, you know, this market, it was...
Beats Walthamstow, mate. It's terrific.
Yeah.
Hani is one of the last remaining Palestinians still living in the old centre of Hebron, which has now been set aside as the Jewish quarter. That was where we were headed, but before entering the Jewish part of town, we made a stop to pick up supplies.
So what is this stuff? Rice?
It's a rice, it's an oil, tea, coffee, and here we have beans. Beans we have, all of that.
Chickpeas, yeah.
Like many Palestinians, Hani and his family are dependent on handouts from the international community to survive. But Hani must carry everything to his house by hand.
Why don't you take this in your car?
Because the Israeli closed my street to my house.
So you can't drive your car to your house?
I cannot because I'm Palestinian. The Israelis, they can.
As we approached the entrance to the district where Hani lives, we came across the first of 4 checkpoints he must pass to reach his house. Only residents are permitted to enter. There is a rather forlorn silence in these streets after the bustle of the market. 500 Palestinian families once lived in this part of town, but now just 50 are left, and I would soon see why.
You sure you don't want me to carry a bag? Shall I carry a bag?
No, thank you. You need someone to carry you.
You're right about that.
As we toiled up the hill, the settlers drove past in their cars.
My neighbor now.
Just a couple of 100 yards in, we hit a second checkpoint.
We should stop.
Hani passes by here every day, and yet he is frequently made to stop and wait.
How long do you sometimes spend here?
Once I remember, I spent more, looks like 3 hours. 3 hours at checkpoint. If I want to pass just without all this...
It's what, half a mile from where you live?
Less than that. We have not more than that. It's been 5 minutes, 6 minutes, I reach my house.
In the view of Hani and his few remaining neighbours, checkpoints like this are all part of a concerted policy to drive them out of the Jewish part of town. Till now, as press, we had breezed through the checkpoints, but now we were forced to wait, just like Palestinians. Hani's Jewish neighbours were able to stroll through without being stopped.
How you doing? Good, you? Yeah, not bad. Where are you from?
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn, whoa.
What's galling for Hani and his neighbours is that all this disruption results from the presence of just 450 settlers. We bumped into an Englishman, one of the numerous international observers living in Hebron.
We go out every morning and watch the school children, both coming through here, Hani's children and the other children that have to come past the settlement. And we watch at the bottom corner by the school where the kids have to
come down those steps.
Next to Beit Hadassah, because they get stones thrown at them, eggs thrown at them, and sometimes adults.
By the settlers.
By settlers.
Do the soldiers ever stop it?
I've never seen them stop it. I mean, it can happen.
It's a very diplomatic response.
If you push them hard enough, they will.
After half an hour, we were finally allowed to walk up the hill. On this occasion, it turned out it was the presence of our camera crew that had caused the hold-up.
Yeah, there's my house.
Right, I see.
We passed one last checkpoint right at Hani's gate, and finally we were there. Until now, I'd been puzzled as to why Hani stayed in this hellhole. But as we sat down to lunch with Hani's family, I began to understand. It was a truly beautiful spot. The house was built by Hani's father, and the family have lived on this land for a century. But Hani is hemmed in on all sides.
As we ate, our camera caught an Israeli soldier playfully pointing a gun at us. When Hani took me up onto the roof, I realised what a strategically vital position this house and its 4 acres of land occupies.
So we're standing on the terrace of your beautiful house with this magnificent view, but you can see up here why your house is wanted and why it's such a tense area. Point out to me where the settlers are.
You can see the White House, big White House.
Big one down there.
Yeah, in the past it was a school. I studied in it.
Looks like a Holiday Inn to me. It's,
yeah.
You know,
and here is that settlement, which they call it Abraham Apino. Here in this area, there is a military base.
You've got settlement, 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 settlement at the military camp there. So you're surrounded by the settlers.
The house immediately next door was occupied by settlers when its elderly owners left it empty for a short time. Hani and his family make sure there is always someone at home, so the same thing doesn't happen to them. Hani claims to have been offered quite extraordinary amounts of money for his house.
Have they tried to buy your house?
A lot of time. The last offer I hear about it, it was $20 million.
$20 million?
Yeah. Before that, they came to my father. My father was here that day, so they offered for him $10 million. So he refused.
But do you not worry that one day they will stop coming round with $20 million in their hands and come round instead with guns in their hands?
If they want to kill me, they can kill me. But God will revenge for me, and in my heart, I feel that I am not a traitor. I am not trade my religion or my nation or my father. Every Saturday, we will have attacked by the settlers. They will attack us. So when we make a complaint for the police, they say we need the food too. So we prepared this camera to document their attacks, and we found that this camera and that camera, they are more dangerous than their machine gun.
The footage shot by Hani and his neighbours provides interesting archive. It shows Jewish children stoning them and their houses. Other footage is shot by international observers. Their voices can be heard pleading with the Israeli soldiers to intervene.
You have a helmet on and you have a gun. Don't do something.
They're a bunch of little thugs. If my kids act like that, let me tell you, I would spank him so bloody damn hard.
Can you do something, please? They live here. They should be able to be outside without getting soaked.
Stop.
Here, a settler girl threatens Palestinian school children.
No, you stop.
Leave them alone. Golan, she started up with me. I'm gonna kill her. She's not supposed to be here. It's a Jewish place.
Most of the violence is petty, but some is more serious. In this footage shot 4 years ago, a mob attacks Palestinian homes. The following morning, while Hani's kids got ready for their daily journey to school, I decided to go and visit a house which had been seized a couple of weeks earlier by Jewish settlers. The house is on a strategic road leading to the tomb of Abraham. 5 years ago, 12 Israeli soldiers and security guards were killed close to this spot by Palestinian terrorists.
There's the family who were evicted. There's the soldiers keeping the family who were evicted out of their house. And there are the new owners of the house. Is it okay if I go and knock at the door? Why?
No, it's house. It's private.
Yeah, but you can knock at private houses, can't you? Excuse me. You live here? You speak English? Okay, nice to meet you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. You do speak English? Do you speak English? Little bit?
Just want to check.
No English, don't be.
I have Hebrew. I have Hebrew. The truth is, I don't think anyone really wants to talk to me. I should have brought a gift. You can't talk to me. I don't want to. Why? I'm harmless enough. So I've failed, really. I've tried to speak to them in English and in Hebrew. I even tried German for a bit, but they won't do it. They have no interest in talking to me whatsoever. So let's go and talk to some people who may talk to us.
We were finishing the flooring of the house. All that was left was for us to move in. We were going to move in 2 days later. They got in here before us and stayed. Since then, we've been living in a rented house.
The settlers claim they bought the house legitimately, and I've no doubt unscrupulous Palestinian landlords do sometimes sell the same property twice. But this was not even a Jewish part of town. As we filmed, tensions rose between the Palestinian family and the soldiers. Mohammed, who we had interviewed earlier, was arrested. How old is this boy? 15? We realised that to a degree we had created this situation. The Palestinians are, in general, acutely aware of a world watching from beyond the checkpoints. Things calmed down when we shut the camera off. Later, Mohammed was taken away by the police. He was released the following day, but it was impossible not to contrast his treatment with that of the settler kids Hani and his neighbours had filmed. Here in Hebron, the conflict on the West Bank is seen at its starkest and most tense. And the Israeli security forces scarcely make even a pretense of the even-handedness between the two communities that one would expect from a democratic state. Israel's support from the West depends upon the fact that it's a liberal democracy, and in many ways, of course, it is a liberal democracy, certainly far, far more democratic than any of the Arab states which surround it. But is it democratic when you come to a town like Hebron and you see the two sections of people dealt with in so different and so cruelly different a way? The 1,000 upon 1,000 of Arabs who've been living here since time immemorial, whose lives are disrupted and they're subject to humiliations and beatings and imprisonments, all in the name of 250 or 500 illegal Jewish settlers whom the army protects. That seems to me a fundamental flaw in the notion that Israel is a truly democratic state in the way we think of it. I confronted the Deputy Defence Minister about the situation in Hebron. Wouldn't it be simpler to get those settlers out of Hebron?
At the moment, we are doing our best to impose law and order in Hebron, and especially to monitor the activity of those settlers who take provocative actions against their neighbours.
Well, they took a house only a month or so ago.
Not a month ago, 2 weeks ago, and we are now preparing the evacuation of this building.
In fact, the settlers are still living there despite being served an eviction order. Throughout the West Bank, settlements continue to expand. The Israelis say they will eventually withdraw, as they have done already from the Gaza Strip. But they say the wall will probably form the eventual border, with most of the larger Jewish settlements annexed to Israel. A glance at the map shows what a shrunken, encircled Palestinian state this would leave. It's widely assumed Israel will also retain the area along the border with Jordan. The Israelis hold out the possibility of a land swap, but it's not clear what this would involve. As my journey through the West Bank came to an end, Mahmoud, the mayor and schoolteacher I'd met earlier, organised a demonstration against the wall.
We are going to pray here in the land, and then we are going to have a march through this road which means that we are going to close the road of the settlement in a non-violent way.
The focus of the march was this house, which will be cut off from its land by the wall, despite the fact that its owner has a 30-year-old Israeli court order guaranteeing him possession. As the march got underway, the Israeli military firmly asserted its presence and its control, and indeed its self-restraint. It was left to Mahmoud, megaphone in hand, to restrain the hotheads on the Palestinian side.
There is internal discussion about to stop or to walk, and some people want to continue, some people want to stay and to stop the jeep. And you see, it's just different opinions about local things, but it's normal, it's normal.
All people say, no good morning, no good night. Israel, we will fight.
The divisions among the Palestinians were all too obvious. Moderates like Mahmoud know that their only real hope lies in an appeal to the international community.
Daily we receive emails, we receive phones that we are with you, you did well, we read an article in this journal or this, or we saw something on the TV. This is very nice. This is our weapons against the wall.
Violence has got the Palestinians nowhere, and their aim now is to use Israel's membership of the Western Democratic Club of Nations against it, shaming it into ending the occupation. It may be a cynical propaganda ploy, but it's a smart one. As I left the West Bank, I remained an admirer of the Israelis' ability to create a modern, efficient state in the midst of a thoroughly unmodern and inefficient region. But the bald fact is, under international law, the West Bank is not theirs, and they should not be there. The tragedy for Israel is that the occupation is not only destroying Palestinian society, it is also eroding the fundamental decency of the state that David Ben-Gurion created 60 years ago. For years, Israel contented itself with fulfilling 2 of Ben-Gurion's 3 criteria for the country. Israel was truly Jewish and truly democratic, and as such it had our unqualified respect. But in attempting to fulfill that 3rd, more contentious goal of a greater Israel, the other 2 were undermined. As Ben-Gurion himself knew, they were always mutually exclusive. As we've seen, Israel's occupation of the West Bank is coarse, spiteful, discriminatory, and at times brutal. This is not what democracies are supposed to do.
Live-in childcare has reached new heights in the UK. Cutting Edge meets the au pairs next on 4.